If you look at the papers at all on a Monday morning, you may have noticed that some of the stories come out of this programme, and they've very often got a photograph with them. This is last Monday's FT, for instance. There's David Cameron talking about his first budget, and there's the photograph. Now, the photographs are mostly taken by a shadowy figure who lurks off behind the cameras. He's the BBC News star photographer Jeff Overs. And it turns out that Jeff has been in the news himself this week with a very, very interesting little story. So I'm going to embarrass him by hauling him over. Would you join us for a second, Jeff? Sorry, you don't normally come here, and I'm
You've launched yourself into the public eye.
You've been launched into the public eye because of this story. I don't know if you can see the headline here. It's the Evening Standard version. BBC man in terror quiz for photographing St Paul's sunset. What happened?
Well, I was outside the Tate Gallery on Wednesday, and it was a lovely evening. I thought, I'll do some night shots of St Paul's Cathedral. It's a sort of classic image of London. Yeah. So I was standing there with another photographer who's a keen amateur, I describe him as. And suddenly we had our collars furled under the Section 44 of the Terrorism Act by a very charming young PC, I have to say. She was very, very polite. But when I sort of took issue with her and said, what, you know...
It's a sunset.
Yeah, it's a sunset. She said, well, her colleague who was a support officer said, well, you might be wrecking for a terrorist attack, or, you know, as far... I said, seriously? I mean, do you really think that two photographers standing here... Well, we've stopped lots of people, she said, along the South Bank this afternoon, and no one's complained.
Do you know, when people talk about civil liberties, you sort of think, oh, they're banging on a bit, aren't they? But actually, stories like that just put a shudder down my spine.
It's also silly, because, I mean, you're not likely for someone to say, yes, as it happens, I am an Al-Qaeda operative, well done you, and I'm coming quietly.
Yes, I think it's because you've got a camera. Apparently it's happening a lot of photographers. I mean, I was aware this was happening, it hadn't happened to me before, but amongst the profession, and also amongst enthusiastic amateurs.
But it is silly, because the Al-Qaeda operative will presumably be dressed like a tourist and have a camcorder.
And probably be working undercover, as it were, not with the biggest lens.
But I was actually just recording something for BBC Radio in Trafalgar Square into something the size of a dictaphone, and was stopped and told I couldn't do it.
It's getting increasingly difficult anywhere, public spaces especially.
So your message to the authorities and the constabulary, stop being silly.
Yes, it's all a bit Eastern Bloc, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
I know it's the 20th anniversary of all that.
It's actually a little bit terrifying, because we imagine that we live in this country with the freedom of speech and certain rights, and that's very clearly an infringement of them.
Well, Jeff, thank you for coming on. Eastern Bloc, you said. Well, we've got Eastern Bloc weather at the moment, pretty filthy weather in London overnight, though we're kind of relatively unscathed compared with the northwest of England, of course. For news of what we can expect for the rest of the weekend, it's over to Matt Taylor with a lot of blue, I think, on your mat today.